Hello friends! Today I will tell you a story that will make you experience the whole range of emotions. This is a story about love, betrayal, and revenge. About a man who was ready to do anything for his wife, but ended up in a nightmarish captivity. Are you ready to find out how ordinary life turns into a real thriller? Then be sure to click the subscribe button and we will begin. Old Friend. Chapter 1. You've made a fool of me, but broken dreams must come to an end. Hey woman, you got the blues, because you ain't got nobody else to use. I pressed a button on the radio, switching to one of those late-night talk shows that talk about Bigfoot or UFO sightings. I had heard the same song repeatedly over the past few hours, and I was tired of listening to it. Why, you might ask? It's simple. It reminded me too much of the woman I left. I take that back. I didn't leave, I ran. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Stan Shipman, and for the past 5 years I've been married to Lucy, the former Lucy Dalton. We had a crush on each other back in high school, and I thought we were soulmates. We got married right out of high school. Yeah, big mistake, I know. But we were so in love with each other that we thought it would work out. God, I was wrong. Money was not a problem. I am a welder by profession. I have been doing it since I was a kid. My father was a welder, and he taught me everything I needed to know. I've been collecting metal since I was big enough to safely handle a welding machine. When I was young, I always wanted to join my father on a construction site, but I couldn't. Union rules and insurance regulations prevented it. But my father was a home-based fabric maker, and he always gave me assignments. It was a great learning experience for me, and I loved doing it. After high school, I went to learn to be a welder, but I got bored with the class because I already knew all that shit, so I took the exam and blew all the instructors away. I got my certification and went straight to work. Since I already had a lot of experience and could do not only welding but also fabrication and fitting, I was paid good money, especially when I had to travel out of state for big jobs. I even did some underwater welding and made a lot of money doing it. I made enough to put Lucy through college, and now she's a paralegal working at some cool law firm downtown. So why am I running? And why am I now on the freeway in the middle of the night? The answer is the two-legged creature I married and her evil friend. Oh yes, Lucy was so sweet and bright when we were younger, but things can change, and they did. Don't get me wrong. I loved this woman, and was more than happy to pay for her college. Her parents were sure I'd have to go into debt up to my eyeballs to make it happen. But they grossly underestimated me. On her graduation day, they were just as proud of me as they were of her. Better yet, thanks to me, she graduated without a dime of student debt. But everything went downhill after she started working at the law firm of McMaster and Fredericks. Everything was fine for the first couple of months, but it got worse as time went on. To begin with, some of her female colleagues were a bad influence on her, to say the least. Lucy started going out with them once a week, usually on a Wednesday night. I didn't mind at first, since she usually got home early enough for us to spend the evening together, and I was often at the construction site busting my ass, but as time went on, she started going out on Wednesdays and Fridays. It pissed me off that we usually went out on Fridays. When I reminded Lucy of this, she replied, "We can always go out on Saturdays. I deserve that time with my friends." Then she started staying longer and longer. It got to the point where she wasn't home until early Saturday morning. If I tried to call her number to see if she was okay, the call always went to voicemail. Eventually I got fed up and sat her down at the table to talk about it. "We need to talk," I said one Saturday morning over a cup of coffee. "About what?" she asked. "These Friday night parties of yours," I said. "We used to go out on Friday, but lately you've been partying until almost 4 in the morning on Saturdays. What the hell is going on? I hardly see you anymore." "Me and the girls from the office like to go out and relax and have a few drinks," she says. "Sometimes we dance. That's about it." "I know these clubs usually close no later than 1 o'clock in the morning," I told her. "But you were out much later than that. What's going on? Are you seeing someone else?" "Of course not," she said with a heavy sigh. "If you really want to know, we sometimes go out to eat afterward." "Yes, but until 4 in the morning?" I asked. "Sometimes," Lucy said. "Well, this shit needs to stop," I told her. "You have to make a decision. You're either my wife or their friend. They already see you more often than I do. I don't mind one night with the girls, but I feel like you're taking advantage of me." "I'm sorry," she said. "If you want, I'll stop seeing girls on Fridays." "I think that's a good idea," I said. That way we can spend some time together." She nodded her head in agreement and headed for the shower. I took the opportunity to get her phone out of my purse and installed a phone finder app to keep track of where she was. Partly I hated to do it, but I felt I had to do it, just for my own peace of mind. Things were fine for a few weeks, but Lucy went back to her old habits, and soon she started leaving the house again on Wednesday and Friday nights. I needed to find out what the hell was going on, so I fired up the phone lookup app and figured out where she was. After coming home from work that Friday, I cleaned up a bit and then headed to the club where she and her friends were. It wasn't really a club, more like a bar with a DJ and a dance floor. I walked in and noticed her right away. She was sitting with a group of 4 women and 3 men. I noticed that Lucy was chatting quite nicely with one guy sitting next to her, even a little too much if you know what I mean. I also noticed that she was wearing something much nicer than what she had put on this morning. They were completely oblivious to my presence until I was right at their table. Everyone except Lucy looked up at me, and the guy next to her spoke. "What do you want?" he asked, holding it like he was going to kick my ass. "I just got home from work and decided to grab a beer," I said, causing Lucy to look at me in surprise. "So I walk into this bar and look what I found. Aren't you going to introduce me to your friends?" Lucy looked around nervously. She was clearly embarrassed. "Everyone," she said. "This is Stan. He's my husband," she added, thinking. "Stan, that's everyone." "Hi, everyone," I said sarcastically. I saw that she wasn't wearing her wedding or engagement ring. "Did you happen to forget anything?" She saw me looking at her left hand. "I took the rings off so I wouldn't lose them," she said. Bullshit, I thought to myself, but I decided not to insist. "I see," I said. The guy next to her stood up and stuck out his chest. He held out his hand, and I took it. "Jake," he said. "Jake Rollins. Lucy and I work together. A lot," he added with a smirk. The rest of us chuckled lightly, except Lucy. He squeezed my hand in a vain attempt to intimidate me and assert himself as the alpha male. It didn't work, so I squeezed it back and squeezed his soft, feminine hand in mine as hard as I could. I could see he was in pain, so I let go. "I was just about to ask your wife to dance, if you don't mind," he said, rubbing his hand. I looked at Lucy. "Is that true?" I asked her. She looked at me and slowly nodded her head. I thought this might be a chance to find out what was really going on, so I nodded my head and gave him permission. "Yeah," I said. "Just watch your hands, and know that this is my wife, and I'll be watching you." He nodded his head as Lucy rose from her seat. After she stood up, I sat down in the seat Jake had previously occupied and ordered a beer. Most of the others had already left for parts unknown. "You don't own it, you know," the girl next to me said as I waited for my beer. "And you are?" I asked. "Marie," she said. "Marie Compton. I've been mentoring Lucy a bit, you know, show her how to do things and stuff." "So, Marie Compton," I said, teasing the way she and Jake introduced themselves to each other. "Who are you that I need to get marriage counseling?" "I'm Lucy's friend, and like I said, I mentor her," she said, taking a sip of her drink. "The partners like her work, and they have big plans for her." I didn't like her smug attitude and wondered what kind of nonsense she was feeding Lucy. "Well, Marie," I said, "I never said Lucy belongs to me, but I am her husband. If something happens that interferes with our marriage, I need to know about it." "Truth be told, Stan, Lucy needs to broaden her horizons a bit," Marie said. "All she's ever known is college and you. She needs to, spread her wings a little." "Expand her horizons and spread her wings, right?" I asked. "Anything else she needs to spread?" "No need to be rude," Marie said. "But since you brought it up, yes. Perhaps she needs to experience other things. Of course, it will be good for you in the long run." "Oh? How?" I asked. "Well, maybe she'll learn something she can bring home to you," Marie said with a smile. "After all, you're probably getting something on the side when you go off to earn money, aren't you?" "No, Marie, I don't," I said. "I go to work, bust my ass, work my ass off, get paid, and then come home. I love Lucy, and I would never do anything to hurt her or jeopardize my marriage." "Maybe it's you who needs to broaden your horizons a bit?" she said with a smirk. "I take my wedding vows very seriously," I said, "and I believe Lucy will do the same. I don't see a ring on your finger. Have you ever been married? A couple times, actually, she said. Let me guess. Your husbands caught you cheating, didn't they? I asked. She shrugged. Yeah, so? She said. I don't belong to anyone. I do what I want to do with who I want to do it with. Well, Lucy is busy, and I expect you to respect that, I said. She giggled. Yeah, you're going to keep thinking that, she said. By then, Jake and Lucy had returned from the dance floor. I stood up so Lucy could sit between me and Marie. I sat down, not letting Jake sit next to her. He didn't look too happy, but I didn't care. So, Lucy told me you're a welder, Jake said. How much do welders make these days? $15 an hour? Actually, I make over $35 an hour, I said. More if I have to work underwater. Didn't Lucy tell you I paid for her college tuition? So you're paying off her student loans? He asked. No, she doesn't have a student loan because I paid her tuition, I told him. I also bought this new Toyota for her. Damn, I didn't realize welders made so much money, he said. I'm in the wrong business. I bet you have a lot of women on the side when you go out of town, huh? He asked, nudging me with his elbow. No, I work when I'm out of town, I said. I usually work 16 hours a day when I'm on a construction site. Like I told Marie, I take my wedding vows very seriously. I bet you do, Jake said smugly. I didn't like where this was going, and these people were starting to piss me the hell off. I turned to my wife. Did you drive here today? I asked her. Yes, she said. Good, I told her. Because I've had enough fun to last me here tonight. I'm going home now. I expect to see you by my side. I started to get up, and accidentally knocked over a nearly full ice-cold beer into Jake's lap, getting his khaki pants dirty. Oops, I said. Sorry about that. I think you'd better go home and change your pants. He jumped up, furious, and looked like he was about to take a swing. You better do it, buddy, I told him, because I'll get you in the dirt when I get up. He saw the look in my eyes and backed off. Smart move, I told him. I turned to my wife again. Are you coming? I'm right behind you, she said quietly. I noticed the look Marie was giving me. Believe me, if looks could kill, I'd probably be dead by now. I headed for the exit without looking back. Lucy pulled into the driveway a few minutes after me. Good for her, I thought. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and waited for her in the living room. She burst in, her face red. What the hell was that? She demanded. You confused the hell out of me. Did I embarrass you? I asked rhetorically. Are you following me or something? She asked. I shook my head. No, I actually just wanted to grab a beer and was surprised to see you there with some friends from work, I said, realizing I had just lied to her for the first time since I'd met you. If anyone had reason to be embarrassed, it was me. Imagine what went through my head when I saw my wife, the love of my life and best friend in the world, sitting there with some chick acting like a perky schoolgirl. And imagine how I felt when I saw you take off your wedding ring. Like you were embarrassed to admit you were married to me. Right? Her face softened, and she took a seat next to me. Of course not, she said. It's just that I have to work with these people, and Jake is the lawyer I work with the most. And Marie? I asked. What is her role? She has a higher position in the food chain than I do, Lucy says. She's been mentoring me, showing me what's what. Does that include marital counseling? I asked her. What do you mean? She asked. Well, while you and Jake were dancing, she was telling me all kinds of crap about you needing to expand your horizons and spread your wings, I said. I asked if that meant you needed to expand all your horizons, and she admitted that it did and will continue to do so. Be honest with me. Have you been cheating on me? No, I haven't, she said, lowering her gaze. For some reason, she couldn't look me in the eye. Was she lying to me? I hope you don't, because you know that's one thing I can never forgive, I told her. Marie said you might get some while you're gone, Lucy said. Really? No, I told her. We've known each other probably since 6th grade. Have you ever known me to be unfaithful to you? She shook her head. No, she said quietly. I've never cheated on you, and I don't intend to, I said. I love you too much to disrespect you like that and hurt you. Besides, when I'm not here, I'm too busy working. I wasn't kidding when I told Jake that I often work 16 hours a day. I know, she said. I've seen your payroll. That's it, I told her. What do you think you've been going to college for? Buying yourself a new car, dressing in nice clothes all this time? And that's on top of paying our regular bills. You know, I've been saving up to make a nice down payment on a house. So you can tell Marie to shove her bullshit up her ass and shut the fuck up about things she knows nothing about. You didn't care for her too much, did you? Asked Lucy. No, not at all, I said. I don't like the crap she's feeding you. It's the same with Jake. I don't trust either of them. Do you know she's been divorced twice? For cheating? Lucy looked at me, shocked. How do you know that? She asked. She told me, I said, and seemed awfully proud of it. I have a feeling those two are up to something and intend to bring you down with them. You haven't done anything wrong, have you? No, Stan, I didn't, she said. It's just… What exactly? I asked her. I like going out with them, she told me. Well, I like going out with you too, I told her. Why don't you start spending time with your husband? Of course, she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. I'm sorry. It's okay, I told her. You know I've only wanted 3 things in my life. What is it? She asked. 1, to be married to you, I said. 2nd, to be the best welder around. And 3rd, to have a family with you. She smiled, snuggling closer to me. Well, you did well with the first 2, she said. Do you want to work on the 3rd? It was my turn to smile. Let's go, I said. We ran to the bedroom and spent the rest of the night together. For a couple more months, things seemed calm. Lucy stayed home on Fridays, and I tried to be more attentive and loving. I purposely didn't mention Marie or Jake anymore, because I believed Lucy would do the right thing. And then it happened. I came home one Friday night and found the house dark, with only a few candles burning on the dining room table. The smell of lasagna wafted from the kitchen, and I thought Lucy had cooked something special. I walked into the dining room and saw that our best china was on the table. When I turned around, I saw her, my beautiful wife, dressed in one of the finest dresses I had ever seen. I liked looking at her legs and she knew it, so she chose a dress so I could get a good look at her best parts. Tonight was already looking good. Do you like what you see? She asked. I nodded my head. Oh yes, I said. I'm glad, she said. Tonight is going to be special. Why? I asked. It's a surprise, she said. Go get cleaned up and then sit down while I make dinner. I went into the bedroom and cleaned myself up, changing into my work clothes. By the time I had washed up and returned to the dining room, Lucy had already served the lasagna and even poured us each a glass of wine. I loved Lucy's cooking, and I especially liked her lasagna, which was always sprinkled with cheese and filled with meat and mushrooms. I don't even know what's more tempting, you or the lasagna, I said, sitting down. She giggled, sitting down. I hope you enjoy both tonight, she said with a smile. I dug into my lasagna, and it was delicious as always. I took a few sips of wine, not wanting to get too drunk. After I finished everything, I felt a little strange. I tried to get up, but I felt so dizzy that I almost fell over. I looked at Lucy confused. What had she done? I asked myself. I tried to speak, but it was very difficult. What? I started, but in the next instant, I was already falling to the floor. When I finally came to, I found myself strapped to a chair in our bedroom. My arms were strapped to the armrests of the chair, and my legs were strapped in a similar fashion. What the hell was that? I asked myself. I became terribly angry and screamed. Lucy! Shouted I. What the fuck is going on? A few moments later, Lucy walked into the bedroom, but she wasn't alone. Marie was with her. What the fuck is this shit? I asked. Get me the fuck out of this chair, now! I'm sorry, honey, Lucy said. Marie said it was for the best. Best for what? Demanded I. So you can see your wife expanding her horizons, Marie said calmly. Was it your idea to tie it to this chair? I asked. Of course, Marie said. Lucy told me you'd never agree willingly, so I gave her something to make you pass out for a while. That way you can watch your wife expand your horizons, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I stared at Lucy, angry like I'd never been in my life. And you agreed to this shit? I asked. You know what that means. I'm sorry, Lucy said. But Marie said it was the only way out. Believe me. Please. It won't affect us in any way. I still love you. Marie said most married men fantasize about these things. No, and it never has. And yes, it does affect us. I told you I wouldn't tolerate any cheating. And what the fuck is that thing you put on me? I asked her. It's called a cage, Lucy said. It's designed to give me complete control over you and let you know who's in charge in our marriage. I swear to God, I said to Lucy, I never fantasized about this, and I promise that if you don't untie me from this fucking chair and get this thing off me right now, we're screwed. Please don't do this, Lucy begged. It's just one night. I'll let you go when we're done. I shook my head. You're not that stupid, Lucy, I told her. Let me go right fucking now. Marie walked over to me, and the next thing I knew, she had her mouth shut on me. You have to be quiet, she said. I shook my head. I struggled to get out of the chair, but I couldn't. Marie got up and walked to the bedroom door. Jake and another man from her office entered the room and looked at me, grinning. Well, well, Jake said. Is he ready for initiation? Yes, Marie said. But he's not very cooperative. Really? Asked Jake. That might help. He jerked back and punched me in the face with his fist. Then he hit me again. Don't hurt him, yelled Lucy. You promised me you wouldn't hurt him. I owe him for ruining my pants, he said. Now he's going to watch me with his wife. With those words, the whole thing began. I was shaking with rage. Jake and Marie laughed, seeing my embarrassment. Marie filmed the whole thing on a small handheld camera. You like watching your wife interact with other men, don't you? Asked Marie, taking notes of what was happening. Admit it, she said. I shook my head and stared daggers at her. It's time for the main attraction, he said, glancing at me. I closed my eyes. Do it, she said. Anytime, Jake growled. Better than your slacker husband? He asked. Oh yeah, that's much better, Lucy said, as tears ran down my cheeks. At that moment, all the love I had felt for Lucy vanished. I had read stories of weak husbands getting turned on, but all I felt was hatred. I tried not to look at them, tried to focus on something else, but it was hard. It was over, and Marie decided to continue. That wasn't so bad, was it? Marie said. Make sure you get it, Jake said to Marie. In the next instant, I realized that two men were doing something that made me ready to strip them of everything they have, had, and would have. I thought I was going to throw up. Lucy laughed. When they were done, Jake leaned toward me. If you say or do anything, Loon, I swear I'll make your life a living hell, he said. From now on, your wife belongs to me. I will come whenever I want and do whatever I want. Understand? He stood up and turned to the other man. Come on, let's go, he said. When they left, Marie walked over to me. Don't even think about causing trouble, she said. Jake wasn't kidding. Those were child's play compared to what we can do to you. Understand? She stood up and looked at Lucy. Wait until I leave, then let him loose. If he does anything nasty to you, call me. Lucy nodded her head in understanding. After Marie left, Lucy cut the ropes holding me to the chair. Then she took the key from the nightstand and removed the cage. She started to say something, but I interrupted her, got dressed, and went to the phone. What are you doing? She asked as I dialed 911. I may be a welder, but I'm no fool. I knew what she and her accomplices had done was highly illegal, and I intended to see them in jail that very night. Lucy freaked out when she realized I had just called the police to report an assault with unlawful restraint. I snatched Lucy's cell phone from her to keep her from calling Marie. I also took the keys out of her purse to keep her from leaving. She tried to snatch the phone and keys out of my hands, but I managed to wrestle them from her and put them in my pants pocket. Finished talking, I sat down and waited for the cops. I knew they would want to examine me and take fluid samples for evidence. Please don't press charges, Lucy pleaded. I don't want to go to jail. Trust me, this is the safest place for you right now, I said. You can get dressed. The cops will be here any minute. You heard what Jake and Marie said, Lucy told me. They're serious. You shouldn't mess with them. Get dressed, I told her. Lucy saw the look on my face and realized it was best not to push me. She dressed quietly, and I felt her phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw that Marie had sent a text. "Everything okay?" Marie's message read. "It's okay," I wrote. "He's not too happy, but he'll get over it." I sent the message, hoping Marie would buy the deception. I put my phone back in my pocket. By the time Lucy walked in the front door, the police had arrived. I opened the door and let them inside. One look at my face was enough to know that things were bad. One of the officers recorded my statement, while the other talked to Lucy in the bedroom. The officer who recorded my statement called an ambulance and took swabs from my face and placed them in evidence bags. The second officer returned, and they conferred at the front door for a few minutes before going back inside. When they did, the second officer went into the bedroom and came out of there with Lucy. Her hands were behind her back and she was crying. "Please don't let them arrest me," she pleaded. "This was just supposed to be fun." I shook my head and turned away from her. By then, 2 more police cars and an ambulance had shown up. A policewoman appeared in the doorway and took Lucy away. The policeman who took my statement said she was under arrest for unlawful detention, drug use, and violence. "We'd like to have you checked out at the hospital," he told me. "We'll need to take blood and urine samples to determine what they drugged you with." I thought about arguing, but decided against it. The more evidence against whoever did this, the better. "Perhaps you should also sign a protective order," he told me. He handed me a card with the name of a lawyer from the local prosecutor's office and a phone number. I already took the liberty of calling her, and she said she would meet you at the hospital, he told me. I thanked him and set off with the paramedics, who did a cursory examination on the way to the hospital. In the emergency room, they examined me, took samples of the substance on my face, washed me and took blood and urine samples. I was given an anesthetic and was starting to calm down when a well-dressed woman entered the examination room. "Stan Shipman?" she asked. I nodded my head. "It's me," I said. "Mr. Shipman, I'm Linda Calloway," she said. "I'm the assistant district attorney assigned your case. How are you feeling?" "I'm feeling better," I said. "A little tired now." They gave me something to take the pain away. "Mr. Shipman, the officers who transported you have informed me of the situation," she said. "I have also been informed that the other woman and the 2 men who assaulted you have been taken into custody and are in the county jail awaiting a hearing. I am requesting that they be released on bail, but the reality is they will likely be released on their own recognizance. I'm afraid the company they work for has a lot of influence in the county. Therefore, I have taken it upon myself to seek a protective order for you." "Thank you for that," I said. "Do you think it will do any good?" She shrugged. "I can't say for sure," she said. "It's possible, but there's no guarantee." I nodded my head. "I understand," I said. "If it's any consolation, they'll be in jail at least until Monday morning, when the arraignment hearing will take place," she said. "After that, I understand," I said. "I'm an ordinary laborer who has no friends in high places. When it comes to fighting, I'm on my own." "You have me, Mr. Shipman," she said with a note in her voice, "as long as you don't do anything stupid. But you might want to hire a divorce lawyer, unless you plan to stay married to your wife." "No, I'm done with her," I said. She nodded her head understandingly. "I'm told they plan to keep you overnight for observation," she said. "And that's good, since your apartment is now a crime scene. They'll need time to look around and collect evidence. By the way, do you have a gun?" I shook my head. "No, I don't," I told her. After my younger brother accidentally shot himself in the leg with Dad's .22 caliber pistol, he got rid of all his guns, and I decided it was better not to have any. "Okay," she said. "Just so you know, we have lock laws in our state, so you can defend yourself in your own home." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "What about drugs?" she asked. "Do you have drugs in your apartment?" I shook my head again. "I'm not, but apparently I can't say the same for my wife," I said. "Okay, I'll pass on that," she said. After she left, I found myself falling asleep and woke up when I was moved to a private room. After I was placed, I was given more medication and fell asleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, my parents came over to my house after I finished breakfast. They sat in silence while I told them everything that had happened. When I finished, my father was furious. "What are you going to do, son?" he asked. I'm divorcing that fool, I told him. He nodded his head approvingly. Good for you, he said. Is there anything we can do? I could use the name of a good divorce lawyer, I said. I know a few people, he said. I'll see what I can come up with. I could use a ride home after you're discharged too, I said. No problem, my dad said. Just call me when you're ready. In the meantime, get some rest and take it easy. Don't do anything stupid. You know me, I said. Yeah, I know, he said with a smile. That's why I said not to do anything stupid. We all had a good laugh, and they left after my mom gave me a hug. A little while later, Lucy's parents came in. We always got along well, and they were like second parents to me. I told them about what had happened the night before. They were shocked and embarrassed by what their daughter had done. I take it you'll be filing for divorce, her father said. I nodded my head. Yes, I said. I can't live with what she did. I understand, he said, and I'm sorry. Is there anything we can do? Her mother asked. If Lucy gets out of jail, she'll need a place to stay, I said. The ADA will get a protective order, so she won't be able to stay in the apartment. She can stay with us, her mother said. Thank you, I told her. We said goodbye, and they left. A couple hours later, the doctor came in and examined me. He declared me fit to be discharged, and the nurses started the paperwork. I knew it would take a while, so I called my dad and let him know. My parents returned about the time the paperwork was finished. After the nurse gave me directions, she put me in a wheelchair and took me to the loading area where my dad's car was parked. They helped me get in and we drove off. Soon we pulled up to the apartment. Dad helped me to the door and we said goodbye again. Remember, he said, if you need anything, just call. Thanks, Dad, I said. I walked into the apartment and looked around. The police had gone through everything, and I knew it would take time to put everything in its proper place. I noticed right away that there was a message on our answering machine. I listened to the message. Dead meat, the message read. Nothing else, no introduction, nothing. I looked and found that the number was listed as private. Something about the message seemed familiar, so I listened to it a few more times. And then it hit me. It wasn't a person speaking directly into the receiver. I recognized the phrase from one of the old Rocky movies, specifically the Mr. T movie. Whoever had sent the message had recorded it and then played it back over the phone. A few minutes after I realized this, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a fairly young, attractive brunette standing outside. I remembered seeing her at the club when I'd first met Jake. I looked closely, but I didn't see anyone else with her. A thought flashed through my mind, and I pulled my cell phone out of my shirt pocket. I activated the camera and set it to record, then put it back in my pocket. Then I opened the door, but didn't remove the chain. Yeah? I asked. Mr. Shipman? She asked quietly. That's me, I said. And you? Holly Brinkman, she said. I work with your wife. May I come in, please? Are you alone? I asked. Yes, I am, she said. I closed the door to disconnect the chain and opened it again to let her inside. After she came in, I closed and locked the door. What can I do for you, Miss Brinkman? I asked. Please call me Holly, she said. Okay, Holly, I said. Again, how can I help you? She handed me a manila envelope. What's this? I asked. Open it, please, she said quietly. I opened the folder and looked inside. Seeing a couple pictures, I put the envelope on the coffee table and went to the kitchen where I grabbed a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want to risk getting my fingerprints on anything. When I returned, I pulled out the photos and was shocked by what I saw. The photos showed a man on his knees with his hands tied behind his back. The pictures were horrifying images. Another photo showed the same man, but from a different angle. I looked at Holly. Who's that? I asked. It was my husband, she said, and tears rolled down her cheeks. His name was Brian. Did you report it? I asked her. She nodded her head. Yes, she said. The police have ruled it a suicide. How? I asked. You don't understand, she said. The firm we work for has friends in very high and low circles. They own most of the police force, and several judges are on their payroll as well. I see, I said. Did Jake do it? She shrugged. I don't know. she said. He may have ordered it done. So why are you still working at the firm? I asked her. I have no choice, she said. Let me guess, I said. You're not just a lawyer's secretary, am I right? That's right, she said. They did to us the same way Jake and Marie did to you. Only my husband went after Jake, and paid a huge price for it. So you're really just a girl for the firm, aren't you? I asked. She nodded her head. Yes, she said. My job is to be available to attorneys and their clients. What's Marie's role in all this? I asked. She's kind of like a madam, Holly said. She handles all of our assignments. And she added Lucy to her stable? I asked. Yes, she said. I looked inside the envelope and saw something else, a doubled folded piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a note, but the letters looked like they had been cut out of magazines and newspapers and glued to the paper. Talk about smut. I almost laughed, but suppressed the impulse. Stan Shipman, the note began. Stand back or it could be you. The note read. I looked at Holly. Did you read it? I asked her. She shook her head. No, she said. He was dropped off at my apartment this morning with a note for me to deliver him to this address. Are you ready to tell the district attorney about this? I asked. She shook her head. No, she said. I'd like to go on living if you don't mind. You don't realize how evil these people are, especially Marie. How many people in your firm know about all this? I asked. Pretty much everyone above middle management, she said. I nodded my head. Figuratively, I said. Okay, Holly, thanks for bringing this to me. I'm really sorry about that, she said. You seem like a really great guy. Lucy is lucky to have you. Thanks for telling me, Holly, I said. Have a good day, I added as I opened the door in front of her. I watched her leave and made sure no one else was around. I closed and locked the door. That and the voicemail changed the situation dramatically. I still intended to divorce Lucy, but these threats took things to a new level. I finished the video and called Linda. Fortunately, she had written her personal phone number on the back of her business card. This is Linda Calloway, she said when she answered. I told her about the voicemail and the envelope that had just been delivered. That changes everything, she said. Okay, I want you to bring it to me, right now. She gave me her address and then ended the conversation. At that moment, I decided that I needed to get out of this Dodge for a while. I packed enough stuff to last me a few days and threw it in the back seat of my F-150. I had another brainstorm and grabbed the cage Lucy had used on me the previous night. It went in the truck as well. I had an idea and I wanted to put it into action a bit. After putting some basic welding tools in the truck, I called my boss to let him know what was going on and asked for time off, which he quickly granted me. The work is done and you're going to have a bunch of vacations anyway, so take whatever time you need and deal with it, he said. Thanks, boss, I said. I checked everything one more time, locked the door, and headed outside. I made it to Linda's apartment in less than 30 minutes. She was shocked when she saw the pictures and the note. I also have a videotape of the discussion with the woman who brought this, I said. It's very enlightening. Let me watch, she said. I pulled out my phone and turned on the video for her. Oh my God, she sighed when the video ended. That explains a lot. Could you give me a copy of this? I handed her my phone so she could do what she needed to do. When she was done, she handed the phone back. And then I realized that Lucy's phone was still in my pocket. I pulled it out and handed it to her. What's that? Asked Linda. It's Lucy's cell phone, I said. I put it in my pocket the night Jake attacked me. I forgot about it until now. Maybe you can find something in there. I'll have our guys take a look, she said. Then she leaned back in her chair. On second thought, maybe I should contact the state or federal authorities. If what Holly said is true, I can't even trust our own police department. She looked up at me before continuing. What are you going to do? I'm going out of town for a while, I said. She nodded her head. What about custody? Maybe we should put you in the witness protection program, she said. Yeah, right, I said. So Jake and his cronies will know exactly where I am. No thanks. Okay, she said. Just let me know where you are, okay? Okay, I said. I headed for the exit, not knowing where to go. All I knew was that I needed to get away from this shit for a while. I stopped at a bank, withdrew as much cash as I could, and drove on, constantly watching for cars that might be following me. All I could think about were pictures of that poor guy who'd been taken out for not wanting to be Jake and Marie's cuckold. I knew that if I wasn't careful, it would happen to me too. It was late at night when I finally got it. I pulled into the parking lot and made the call. I hoped it wasn't too late, and thankfully it wasn't. "Yes," replied the gruff voice on the other end of the wire. "Dave, it's me, Stan," I said. Dave was an old friend of mine. We worked different jobs together and got along well. "Stan, old buddy," he said. "What the hell is going on?" "I have a little problem, and I was wondering if I could stay with you for a few days," I said. "Sure thing, buddy," he said. "Come on up. Just do me a favor and grab a couple of packs of beer, if you don't mind." "No problem, buddy," I said. "I'll see you in a few hours." "See you later," he said, and ended the conversation. Feeling better, I pulled onto the freeway and headed north. On my way north, I noticed a convenience store, stopped, and picked up a couple 6-pack bottles of beer, along with a styrofoam stall and some ice to keep it cold. I also heated up some coffee for myself and decided to grab a couple packs of cigarettes. I didn't usually smoke in the apartment, but I knew Dave smoked and thought he would appreciate the gesture. After all, he'd let me stay with him for a while, so I considered myself indebted, at least to him. Dave Brolin was about 15 years older than me and worked with my father. That's how we got to know each other. He stayed with us several times when he worked in our neighborhood and was kind of like a big brother to me. I learned a lot from him working at my dad's store. He had a rough time growing up. His father worked in the shipyards and eventually died of complications from mesothelioma, thanks to the asbestos he was constantly exposed to. After his father died, his younger sister Beverly stayed home and looked after their mother until she died about a year ago from a stomach ailment. I'd known Bev for quite some time. She was an unprincipled girl, attractive in her own way. Of course, I'd never made a move on her, partly because of Dave's friendship with me and my father, but mostly because I was already in love with Lucy. Bev and I got along fine, and were more like siblings, teasing each other about one thing or another. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I was curious to see what she was like now. Like me, Dave married young, but eventually divorced when he came home, and found his wife with one of her co-workers. He never remarried, but he does go out from time to time. Most of his time is spent caring for Beverly, who now lives with him. Beverly, of course, says she's looking after him. I pulled up to Dave's 2-story log house around 2:30 a.m., grabbed my stuff and ice chest, and met Dave on the porch. "Hope you have some beer for us in there," he said with a smile. Taking the pack of cigarettes I offered him, he opened the door and helped me get the rest of my things into the house. I carried the ice chest into the kitchen and watched a gorgeous blonde woman in a long t-shirt and short pajama pants come down the stairs. "Whose blonde bombshell is that?" I asked Dave. He laughed. "You know who I am, oaf," the blonde said. I took a breath and realized it was Beverly. She looked nothing like the gangly teenage girl I remembered. She had taut legs, her breasts were a little bigger, and her hair reached almost to the middle of her back. "Beverly?" I asked, confused. "Is that really you?" Here we come to the end of the first part of this exciting story. We witnessed the destruction of the ideal world of the main character, who faced betrayal and treason. Stan, a seemingly ideal family man and successful man, found himself in the epicenter of personal drama. His wife, whom he was crazy about, began to distance herself, spending more and more time outside the home. And when he tried to understand what was happening, he faced aggression and manipulation from his wife's entourage. This is a story about how quickly everything we considered stable can collapse, how ordinary life can turn into a nightmare, and about what a person is ready to do to protect his family and regain lost trust. But this is only the beginning. Even more shocking events await us ahead. Who is behind this intrigue? What other secrets does the past hide? Subscribe to this channel so as not to miss and find out the continuation of this exciting story. And do not forget, the full version is already available on our Patreon. See you in the second part.